Now I'm going to talk about some maths issue. I'm going to do this very quickly because it's a relatively simple concept. I think you'll get it very quickly, but I do want to drill through the numbers so that that awareness is there. When I talk to many businesses, they're trying to get to, well, what's the right price? What's the price I should be charging for this product or that service? So let's just go through this example of a plumber, a choice of plumber. Your washing machine has broken down, your kitchen is flooded. That is a problem for you. You need it fixed. And you know by reputation or through recommendation, you know there are 4 options of plumbers available to you. The first is Mr. Efficient. Mr. Efficient is the most expensive. He's £100. You ring him and he says, I'll be there within the hour. And he is there within the hour. He looks at the problem. He identifies that you need a new motor in your washing machine. He says, look, it's going to be £100. Do you want to spend £100 repairing it, or do you want to go buy a new one, put that towards it? You opt to have it repaired. He then says, great, I've got a new motor on the van. So he nips out to his van and collects it, replaces the motor, tests the machine to make sure it's working, mops up the mess, sends you an email with the invoice on there, and has a credit card machine to take the payment if you want to pay there and then. That's Mr. Efficient. And I know those plumbers don't exist, but imagine for a moment that they do. The other end of the spectrum is Mr. Dreadful. Mr. Dreadful is the cheapest by far. He's only £40 for the same solution. Mr. Dreadful, you ring him, he says, I'll be there sometime today or tomorrow. Doesn't turn up 3 or 4 days. You chase him, you chase him, you chase him. Eventually, Mr. Dreadful turns up best part of a week later, says, I think it's the motor. I'll go and get one. Disappears again to the plumber's merchants to pick one up. Doesn't come back for another 48 hours. But eventually he turns up, he replaces the motor, leaves the old one behind, scribbles the invoice on a sheet of paper, and says, I prefer cash if it's all the same to you. So those are the 2 extremes of your choice. And Mr. Good and Mr. Ordinary are in between with variations of those service and quality levels. So the question is, for a typical 100% of customers, so let's say there are 100 customers available in that month, who set the right price? Well, what we have to understand is there are certain sections of the marketplace that are able to spend more money and others who aren't. So typically, and these are very generic judgments, but they're broadly correct, Mr. Efficient probably is too expensive for all bar 20% of the marketplace. So he's only got 20 out of those 100 customers who are willing and able to pay £100. Mr. Good, by contrast, has a few more. He's got an extra 35%, 35 out of those 100 customers who would pay £75 or above. So on price, he is not too expensive for 55% of the marketplace, because certainly he's not too expensive for the top ones. They would have paid 100, so they're happy to pay at least 75, and there's another 35% that would be prepared to pay £75 for that solution. At the other end of the spectrum, Mr. Dreadful isn't too expensive for any of the customers. They could all afford to pay and are willing to pay at least £40 for the problem solved. So those are the price points that we're looking at. And if we crunch those numbers, what you'll see is it appears at face value that Mr. Ordinary, who could look after 80 customers, he's only too expensive for the bottom 20% of the marketplace. So he could have 80 customers at £55 a time, and therefore he could have the maximum revenue of £4,400. So as a price point, it looks like Mr. Ordinary at £55 a go is there or thereabouts for the optimum pricing. Let's add another variable in. Let's now assume, actually, we haven't got time to do all those jobs. In a typical month, we're only able to do maybe 60 jobs. So we can add a variable in that says we can't do more than 60 jobs a month. Now that has no impact on Mr. Efficient because he only has 20 customers prepared to pay his price. That has no impact on Mr. Good because he's only got 55 customers prepared to pay his price or higher. But that's now starting to restrict both Mr. Ordinary and Mr. Dreadful, who can't do those extra jobs because they don't have time in the day. So suddenly their price point has dropped because they can only do 60 jobs in a month. And what you can see from that is Mr. Good now appears to have the optimum price at just over at £75, generating just over £4,000 worth of income. So we can start to see that setting our price at different price points starts to affect how many customers can and will pay what we ask them to pay for different products. But let's just explore that one stage further. What if Mr. Efficient could understand, because he's asked enough customers and he's got enough awareness of it, if he could understand how important these issues of promptness, involvement in that repair or replace decision, the fact that he's got the motor on the van and he doesn't have to disappear to the merchants, the way he sends the email, the invoice by email, the cleaning up, etc. If he can understand how valuable all those different elements were, then in theory he could give top class service to only the top 20% or 20 customers that are willing to pay £100 for it because they want top class service and they can and will pay top class price for it. He could give a good service to that next tier of customers who really only want to pay £75 for it, and they are accepting of a slightly lower level of service for the privilege of paying a slightly lower price. And if he wanted to, he could even squeeze in a few of the £55 customers around the edges where he'll turn up whenever he's got a gap. If he were able to identify which customers were which and offer service levels to fit those prices, then actually what we can now see is that Mr. Efficient has 20 customers he's charging £100 for, 35 customers he's charging £75 for, and if he wanted to, another 5 at £55. So suddenly he's got the optimum price at £4,900 is the maximum revenue he could generate. Significantly more than Mr. Dreadful, who's still only got 60 customers at 40 quid a pop. So what I want you to understand from there is a pricing issue where if we set one price, we're limiting our options. The key message is there is no right price. Every customer is different. Every customer has a unique set of decisions that they're making. There is no magic number. That starting point of is 75 or 100 or 40 is which of those is the right price. There is no right price. There's no magic number. The price point is affected by the circumstances of each customer. They will change over time. If I'm just about to, go on holiday, getting my washing machine fixed may be more important today than it is at any other time of any other times. And those things will change with movements in supply and demand. If there is a shortage of products, it makes the price go up. So price points are affected by a wide range of issues. This one-size-fits-all pricing strategy that most businesses I talk to are trying to find, what's the price? What's the number I set for my customers? It's just like a one-size-fits-all clothing policy. But the reality is it doesn't fit very many people. You'll either have somebody in a sweatshirt that's twice as big as they are or squeezed into one they can barely get into. One-size-fits-all pricing is just as much of a problem as one-size-fits-all clothing. The best option for every business is unique pricing. Every customer pays the price you can persuade them to pay, but that's very complicated to have no real structure and everybody is unique. So what most businesses do is they try and get that into a number of tiers, 3, sometimes 4 tiers of top customers, next level, and then a final, if you want to pay that, you get this service or don't. So tiered pricing is the way of actually getting the price, which is as right as you can be for segments of your marketplace. And for your business, you'll have similar segments of a premium customer group who will pay top dollar because they always pay top dollar for everything. A second group who just don't like to pay the highest price. They like to pay the next level down. And then others based on the circumstances of, is it value for money for me? So thank you for your time. I appreciate you've taken time out of your day to listen today. I hope you found it useful. There are my contact details on screen. If you buy my book, pick up the phone. I always have time to talk to people about pricing. So thank you for your time today.